Why, hello YouTube! Greetings from the LazyEyebrowReviewer. It's a review of Titan's Return Fortress Maximus. Fortress Maximus is a Titan class figure, much like two other figures, one of which being a combiner, and the other being a figure that Fort Max himself is heavily retooled from, pretty much to a fault, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. For now though, let's start small and gradually get bigger, starting with Fort Max's Headmaster's Headmaster, meet Emissary. Emissary is your standard headmaster, much like every other headmaster in the series, which means he has a face on his back, a screw on his belly button, with articulation that includes arms that rotate on a ball joint, a ball jointed neck, and fused legs that give knee and hip movement. It's a new concept for this review, but every other headmaster is practically the same with an exception here or there, so for future reviews I'm just going to refer back to this guy. As for what else Emissary can do, little known secret, he's also a subspace singularity bomb. So the standard transformation of the head is just folding him over and plugging the head into the neck of the bigger guy, and here we have Cerebros. More like... Cerebros! Before we continue, I'll point out here that neither Cerebros or Fort Max have had their sticker sheet that came with the figure applied. I was going to wait for Toy Hacks to finish their set and then apply it to my figure, but like a few other recent reviews, I didn't end up keeping the figure, and the untouched stickers that went with the figure went to a little boy who I'm pretty darn sure is going to love this robot way more than I ever would. Though apparently he loves Emissary more than the whole thing. Anyway, Cerebros. Cerebros, like Emissary, is a headmaster. However, as opposed to Emissary, Cerebros does a fairly good job of hiding the fact that he's a head. It's not a perfect cover-up, but decent nonetheless. Another cool thing this guy does is that he's also where the batteries for the entire figure go, which is also really, really cool. He's a face, he's a head, he's a battery compartment so that in bot mode he gets his own sound effects, and then when he plugs into his various spots there's a bunch of sound effects for those too, carried out by levers and other mechanisms. And he's comparatively huge, too. I'm surprised at this because he's got the same head as the standard deluxe, but he's masterpiece car-sized. Pictured here is MPB, who he's like 50% taller than. Well, that's terrible scale, B. Even a headmaster has a one-up on you. Masterpiece Sidestreaker Alert, and Masterpiece Ironhide, who's bigger than the headmaster. Out of the three figures, Cerebros is my favorite just for the intense engineering that just went into him. He's essentially a triple changer that does a good job in each mode while looking great with the color scheme, and having a fair amount of articulation to boot. For instance, the headmaster neck joint carries over here, but there's some junk on the way that prevents a full spin. Shoulders that rotate on a separate hinge with outward movement, and ball jointed elbows. The hands, however, are locked in place. Universal hip joints for forward, backward, and outward movement, swivel thighs, and a knee bend. And I suppose for the transformation joints an argument could be made for toe articulation. So since he's definitely a triple changer, let's get him into mode 2. A Fortress Battle Station Spire thing. Fold the arms around, fold these two little fin things around, and remove the head. You'll then need to slide it into the torso bits for the main attraction. Fortress Maximus. Starting off in Battle Station mode, here is Fortress Maximus, and what a massive figure this is. I had to get a queen-size sheet and nail it to the wall and floor just to get this review to work. But bigger doesn't necessarily mean better though. This floating, rolling, or whatever you call it battle station mode looks kind of interesting. I don't really know what other word to use, though, to describe it. Mainly because it just looks like a big guy is having a nap with his arms up and someone covered in cardboard. It's not exactly convincing to me. I mean, it's battle station-y enough, but I can't help but see a big guy just hanging out underneath it all. Which somehow they've made it even more conspicuous than, say, the Combiner Wars plane molds. Somehow. The one thing I do like, however, well really two, first off, that giant 4 massive defense cannons in the back of the station. They look incredible. The second, the control tower command spire thing, whatever, that Cerebros became. It looks amazing. I don't know, it's not a bad mode per se, it's just that when you compare it to what the core of the figure is based off of, and see its rolling battle station mode, it kinda puts Fort Max to shame. So let's move on then to the reason why he has this name. Let's move on over to Fortress mode to see why he's really Maximus. Spread the legs, open the green thing, and if you rotate the figure, you'll see this little red door has to be open for some reason. Ta-da! Fortress mode. I'm not even kidding, the difference in the instructions between two modes really does include opening that door down there. why? How does that change things? How is this mode even different from rolling Battle Station, besides legs being open? I don't mean to be constantly comparing things to G1, but check out G1 Fort Max. This was an intense alt mode that screamed Fortress to me. It was immense. This is like, he's a battle station, he's a fort. Battle station, fortress. Battle station, fortress. Hours of non-stop thrills and chills. Again, you compare it to Generations Metroplex, and the Metroplex conversion is incredible. Neither of his modes look alike. One's a city-ish type thing, the other a rolling aircraft carrier battle station that's armed to the teeth. Fort Max gets those 4 cannons no matter what, and an extra bonus gun for Emissary. I guess this is what you get when you're trying to force a figure to be something entirely what it wasn't. I mean, look at this useless vestigial articulation they added in. Metroplex is a rotating arm assembly to make way for the left side of the chest to open up into a helicopter landing pad, and Fort Max is the same joint included for absolutely no reason. And it's not like they were saving parts by using it, because the chest was completely redesigned, and designed in such a way so as to keep Metroplex's arm swing. Does it have a use here? Absolutely not. And anytime you use it for any mode, it looks dumb beyond reason. So is there any way to fix this? Well, yeah, actually. And it's not by doing this. I've seen a ton of reviewers do it, and then finagle it, and then complain it doesn't really work because the ratchets won't hold it straight up, and yada 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 yada. So go grab yourself a Phillips screwdriver, open up Fort Max's legs using the same useless leftover Metroplex articulation, and take out these 2 screws. Then take apart the leg. So then you take this leg and you open it up, close the green door because I thought it looked silly there in the first place, rotate the thighs up, and then just place the legs around the thighs. Is this parts forming? Absolutely, in every sense of the word, yes. But the visual appearance now, oh man, does it ever do it? Like, this is a fortress. It looks like a heavily fortified stronghold, ready and willing to fend off even the most grueling of invasions. However, doing this leaves Emissary with absolutely nowheres to hang out. So here's what I do. You turn the head around and pop him into the neck joint like so. The holes in the feet look like little eyes, so I like to think of this as the idiotic iRobot Rob ripoff from that disappointment of a Star Fox game that came out a few months ago. And then, he can control a base or whatever.
Incoming Starwolf! Deploying countermeasures!
Anyway, functionality. Well, this figure has a base opening for figures to drive in and access the fort and whatnot. Masterpiece Spike, however, is too big for something for once, which surprises me. Legend-skilled planes can barely use the runways that have obviously been ripped off Metroplex's legs and glued on here. And otherwise, 187 HO scale cars kinda work for this, though you may want to use something else if you have it that's smaller. So Fortress Mode. It only works if you tear the whole thing apart and rebuild it from the ground up. So let's go Maximus Mode. Remove Eye Annoying and then remove the tower control. Put Emissary back onto Cerebros, fold the toes and heels up, fold the fins forward, fold the legs up and around the sides of the head, and then flip up Fortress Maximus's forehead to reveal the face. Back on the fort, put the legs back on their thighs the way things are shaped. You don't actually have to put the screw plate back on, but you can if that's what you prefer. Put the knee cannons down and bring around the feet. Close the ports in the chest and then split and swing around the tower sections to form stereo abs. Rotate the arms around, swing around the entrance ramp, and close the awning over top. And finally, plug in Super Cerebros, and it's Fortress Maximus. And this is actually one mode where he really shines. They've heavily retooled the Metroplex mold, but in robot mode, it's a little hard to tell. Mainly because they've beefed out just about every single visible surface of the bot mode. And it's about the only thing that's great about him. Which is fine in of itself, just because unless you're the kid who's getting this copy, everybody else is going to play with him once or twice, put him in bot mode, set him on a table next to Metroplex, and then beam with pride anytime anybody comes over and goes, "Wow, that guy is huge! That's amazing!" It's kind of crazy though to see just how much has changed aesthetically for Metroplex. 2 figures that essentially on the bare bones are the same, but look massively different. For other size comparisons, Armada Unicron, MP01, MP10, Mastermind Creations Hexatron, G1 Prime Tremagnus, Legends Powerglide, Combiner Wars Bruticus, newly painted and looking way better, and of course, MPB, because everything scales well with MPB. As for Fort Max himself, as I said before, this is where he shines. Fort Max as a bot mode looks incredible. I love the stocky and beefy nature of the bot. I love the blue, gray, white, and red color scheme going on. I bet he'd look better stickered, but even just as is, this mode is fantastic. One thing though, the box was kind enough to draw him holding a massive blaster in addition to his knee cannons, but stupidly enough, he didn't come with one. Considering this was $130 more than what Metroplex retailed for, I kind of expect one for this price. But there's sort of a solution. Removing the knee cannons from the legs and flipping out the handle, which is the same handle Metroplex had for all three of his guns, they just slot into the hands the same way, so we can have little double-barreled pistols. Something I don't exactly expect a figure of this caliber to just have and only have, not including upcoming third-party upgrades. And this isn't even a problem for the San Diego or Takara version. They were kind enough to offer a sword as well. I've grown used to seeing exclusive San Diego versions and Takara releases to have better paint schemes, and that's it. But really, Hasbro? The exclusive and import gets an accessory that the retail doesn't have? Are you kidding me on this one? Honestly though, Fort Max needs something like Metro's gun, or extra guns so he can keep the knee cannons, or something. But nope, he's gotta look lame while Metro stands posing and shooting, and that is boring. So for articulation on this sucker, head rotates on a spinning disc it plugged into. This saves Emissary from being the neck of essentially two figures and that being ridiculous. Arms rotate with separate joint for outward movement. Arms bend almost 180 degrees and rotate at the elbow. Vestigial Metroplex arm movement is carried over for absolutely no reason. Upping the parts and labor cost for absolutely no perceivable reason. Hands rotate with fingers being individually articulated, though no knuckle articulation whatsoever. Wrist bend. 360 degree waist articulation, hips that go out and bend forward on super stiff ratchets that also only have 3 or 4 points of click, which kinda sucks considering the scale. It makes it rather hard to animate smoothly if I'm honest. Knee swivel and bend. Absolutely no ankle pivot. Given that they could have altogether skipped the Metroplex features for the leg, this kind of bugs me. But whatever, poses can still be attained like whatever the heck this is, doing some weird knee slide thingy, doing a ballerina pose, or just a commanding stance. So that's my review for Titan's Return, Fortress Maximus, Super Cerebros, and Subspace Emissary. Honestly, Fort Max isn't the greatest, mainly due to the fact that the designers thought it'd just be easier to reuse a mold that clearly was not designed for anything that Fortress Maximus is or stands for, and that sucks, because this figure showed a ton of potential, and in general is an awesome character. So my advice, skip this and hunt down a Metroplex, a character this mold was actually designed for. Another option is hunt down a G1 reissue Fort Max. That thing is half an inch to an inch shorter, but at the same time, all three of its modes look so much more epic and convincing all around. The G1 is one time where it outclasses a newer, updated figure. How do you fancy that? Anyway, this review is done. This figure has been shipped off. Titan's Return has begun. I'm going back for Bruticus sooner or later with a few other videos planned in the process. This has been the Lazy Eyebrow Reviewer.